Nebraska taking one on the chin yesterday to Ohio State. Final score, Nebraska 17, Ohio State 21 in Columbus. If you're Nebraska, there's a lot to unpack with this one. And I think you feel a lot of different ways after a game like that, and we'll unpack all those right now. Make sure you're subscribed right here. Nebraska Cornhusker fans have had a lot of y'all be subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel, to this show, The Hard Count. Y'all been good to us, man. We appreciate you for it. If you haven't yet subscribed, now's the time, and we're going to keep this thing rolling, all right? So here's like the thing I want to just start this whole conversation with, because I think a lot of people in Lincoln feel this way this morning. There's no moral victories, right? Like you have a 25.5 point spread yesterday, you cover it, you take it down to 4 points. If you're a Nebraska fan, I think there's a lot of reason for you to feel like, hey, maybe we should have won that football game. But here's the deal, man. Didn't win that game. You know it. Everyone in the world knows it. Scoreboard says it. And as much as you're proud of the way that your team played, we'll talk about that. But like, you're not here to just say, hey, way to play Ohio State close. Good for us. Hey, that in itself, that's a moral win. No, you don't believe in moral wins. Why? Because you're in Nebraska. Why? Because that logo means something. Why? Because you hired Matt Rhule to get over the hump, and I believe you will get there, but like, you're not just saying, oh, man, that's awesome. Good for us. You go to bed and lay your head on the pillow that night satisfied. That's not how anyone feels, I don't think, in Lincoln, Nebraska. The standard is what the standard is out there, and that's why you brought Matt Rhule there, to return back to that standard. Standard you haven't been to in some time now. And honestly, like, when you look back at that game, you feel like you should have won that football game. Y'all, I don't blame you. The way that you played on the line of scrimmage, phenomenal. To hold Ohio State to 64 yards rushing, I don't care who they have dinged up on the offensive line. I don't care they're shuffling the deck. That is a tremendous effort by the defense. To play the way they played, in a lot of ways you say, we hold Ohio State to 21, we should win that football game. Dylan Rhule and some of those receivers, man, couple plays here and there, I think that's the difference. And it's kind of hyperbolic and a little bit overarching to say that's the the reason they lost that football game. I don't want to say that, but I think there's a couple of plays there where you say, hey, if we connect here, if a receiver makes a play there, hey, if Rhule is just a little bit more dialed in there, like maybe we win that game in Columbus. Maybe there's a different conversation to be had this morning around what Nebraska football is, okay? And again, it's a little bit harsh to put that on a true freshman. I don't want to totally just say, hey, it's his fault, because that's not the thought I have at all actually on this game. But I do think that over the course of his career, we're going to look back at this game and see how far he progressed from this game and be like, okay, hey, he was better because of the Ohio State game. Look how far he's come since that spot. But again, receiver makes a couple plays here. You hit a couple of shots downfield there, and like this thing could look a little bit differently. So the takeaway is for me, as much as that hurts, as much as the standard is to be elite, and you did not reach that standard yesterday, it's hard to watch that game if you're a Nebraska fan or a college football fan, period, and not see that it's going somewhere at Nebraska. Like to see that product on the field, to see the line of scrimmage play that way, to hold Ohio State to 2 yards rushing per carry, to be able to battle and fight and bounce back the way you did after the embarrassment that last week was against Indiana, to see the internal temperature change and say, no, you know what, like Nebraska, same old Nebraska. No, this is not same old Nebraska. Now, this is not new and improved who you're going to be under Coach Rhule, Nebraska, but this is also not, I think, the team that you saw over the course of last year and even years before that. Because think about last year. Last year, you're battling back and forth with Minnesota and losing a one-score game there. This year, you're battling back and forth with a team that I think has a really good shot to go win the whole darn thing in Ohio State, and you fall to them in a one-score fashion. And I don't want to speak too authoritatively, but like I don't know that previous Nebraska teams are getting up off the mat from Indiana's game that they played last week and then going into the shoe and playing the game that you just played. And again, that's a little bit like hypothetical. You don't want to put too much stock into those, but I had every level of confidence in the world. That's why it was one of our best bets of the week over on my Instagram page, that this Matt Rhule team would get up off the canvas. Why? Because that's who he is. That's who this team is going to be. And so right now you see the work they're doing internally now. Yes, to flip the roster. Yes, Dylan Rhule is a freshman. Yes, the progress there. Those are all valid points. I do think overall, as you look to next season, which I don't want us to do just yet, but if you were to peek the next season and say, hey, what would you like to happen in the transfer portal? Maybe get him a couple more weapons, just a food for thought there. But ultimately, like if you're in Nebraska, internally you're saying, we see the mindset shift happening. And Matt Rhule spoke to that postgame. He's like, that's the work that we're doing right now, is to install within our culture and teach our locker room, like, hey, we need to expect to win and not be shell-shocked when things start going against us and be able to play the next play, like all those things now. And I think yesterday you saw that. It didn't equate to what you want it to equate to just yet. And that's kind of the way that things go sometimes. You give your all to the process, you do all the right things, and then on game day, a couple things happen here or there, and it just works out how it works out. But, like, you see where this is going. From the roster, that's one thing, to the quarterback, but to the response mechanism. To be able to play the way you played last weekend, or not play the way you played last weekend, and then to play as well as you did against one of the best teams in America, one of the best rosters in America, there should be a lot of pride. There should be a lot of pride. Now, as we look to the future and as we kind of reset this conversation around Nebraska from a macro level, let me be very clear on this. You did not hire Matt Rhule to beat Ohio State in year 2. Could you have done it? Yeah. Look at that box score. Look at how well you played. Look at the plays that are there. It's hard to argue that you couldn't have done that yesterday, in my opinion. But you hired Matt Rhule to win this game in year 3, to win this game in year 4. You hired Matt Rhule to install that championship mindset. And some of these things sound cliche. They sound like, nice things that read well on the wall of a weight room or on a t-shirt. But I'm just telling you, these are real things. They're real, and you're starting to see them become more real for Nebraska. They're in the building phases. And in the building phase, it's going to be some bumps and bruises. It's going to be some painful ones like this where you see the progress, but you understand now there's still a little bit more to go, a little bit more ground to cover. But overall, man, as much as you don't believe in moral victories, it's hard for me to look at this Nebraska team and say, okay, yep, that's probably all they're going to be. No, they're going somewhere. They're going somewhere. There's a reason you hired Matt Rhule. Trust the process. It's frustrating to hear the word process because that means you haven't arrived just yet, but the process is not about results. The process is about the process and doing things the right way, which this team will continue to do. And over the course of time now, if you're true to that, if you stay faithful to that, there's going to be a lot of dividends here going forward. And again, in the future now, this is going to be a really dangerous, really gritty, continually gritty, really tough out Nebraska operation. So I can't wait to watch it. Make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all following and subscribing on the socials as well, on Twitter and Instagram at PicKell. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.